One town committee hopes to bring more business to Barnstable. And to find out how you can learn more about the town's finances on this episode of Barnstable Today, it's Thursday, October 29th, 2015. I'm Sarah Mannel. The Barnstable Economic Development Committee hopes to entice more businesses to the area with a new marketing plan. The committee is working with Director of Growth Management Joanne Miller-Buntich on the project. Buntich presented the committee with a draft request for proposal this week.
And I don't even know if I got the title right, but certainly it's going to be consulting services. And I think what I'm hearing is that you want to do a marketing and branding strategy. I think that's what I heard. So what we typically do is do this we have this sort of stock background that we provide in every RFP. And then on page 3, we get to the scope of services. And so this is what was informed by all the information that Stacy gave me that you folks have been working with. So talk about the scope of services. Feel free to look at that. And then the deliverables, which is the main part of the matter. So the marketing consultant shall evaluate the town's image and brand, connect with blah, 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 a marketing strategy. And then I think what I got from you folks was that anybody you hired, you wanted them to begin implementation as well. And I see that as a common practice across other folks who have done this, but none of this is set in stone. This is the first toss out for you guys to take a look at. But this is what an RFP would look like. Then there's the budget, and we talk about communication, and then just the typical, this is what we want in your proposal, so we can evaluate it. So I think the part that's most has to do with refining according to your vision is the scope of services, the deliverables, and so on and so forth.
The committee will review the draft RFP before its next meeting and hopes they can bring it to Town Council for funding in the next few months. Residents will soon be able to review the town's finances. Barnstable This Morning host Sarah Colvin gets details from Finance Director Mark Milne.
So Mark, I wanted to talk about this really great document that the Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee is helping to put together a financial overview report for the town of Barnstable. Tell me a little bit about this document.
Sure. We were looking for something to do in between budget cycles, because after the budget is passed in the late spring, early summer, there's a little bit of a lull between that and the time the new budget process starts in the work for the committee. So we were looking for a project that would benefit the community, and we came up with the idea of creating this financial overview report, which is mainly intended for residents, prospective residents, and business owners to give a real brief overview of the meat and potatoes of the budget, because the 400-page budget document, the typical person is not going to sit down and read that, try to find where the information that is most important to them. So what they did is they pulled out what they felt was the most important information in that budget document and created this brief overview to, again, help the resident understand what the budget's all about.
Absolutely, and really, just taking a look at this, it's really visually intensive. It's nicely laid out, and really does give that kind of a really good snapshot view of how all the town's money is spent. I think it's really great. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what went into putting this together, and perhaps how CFAC worked with you and your staff to decide, what's the important information that people need to know.
Yeah, well, the committee felt that. First of all, it was the management over the town's finances. They wanted to highlight that, and talk about the awards that the town's received and its bond rating, and then they felt it was important that people understand the government structure and how that's organized, and how there's a separation between the town government and the fire district government. So there's a page dedicated to just briefly covering what the fire and water districts are all about. And then they felt it was also important to obviously show how the average property tax bill is broken out, and they have a nice picture in there of showing how a dollar is separated between, how many cents on a dollar goes towards each major operating area within the town and fire district governments.
Yeah, I really, that graphic was one that really stuck out to me, Mark, as I was looking at this document. It really, and I've talked about this for years, but being able to look at this, it really kind of, oh, that's where it's all going, to see the big chunk of the dollar going to the schools, and then the fixed costs and public works and community services and all of that really broken down in a way that you can look at it and it makes sense right away.
Right, and that's and I think they feel that that's what's important, and that's what the average citizen wants to know. Basically, where's my tax dollar go? What are the major functions that it provides for? So they really felt that providing some information in that area would be beneficial, and then they also felt it was important to show the general fund resources. What makes up our general fund resources? Where does it all come from? So they have a page dedicated to just showing a real high-level summary of the major revenue sources that the town receives to fund its operations, and they show the change between the actual or the budget for 15 and the budget for 16, and where the increases and decreases in those revenue sources are going. And the same thing on the expenditure side. They show the major changes they show the change between the major operating budget areas from one year to the next year, so that the reader can get an understanding as to where the dollars are going for the new budget.
And to really look too at the general fund, you see the resources at $149 million and the fund budget at $149 million, and you can really see how the resources and the expenditures really are in line with each other. And again, much more visually easy to understand than, say, if you were to kind of pour through that 400-page budget.
Yeah, and it depicts a balanced budget, and that's important to understand that there is we're responsible for bringing forward a balanced budget every year. And so this really summarizes and highlights what that balanced budget looks like, on both sides of the ledger, the revenues and expenditures. And then there's a brief discussion of enterprise fund budgets. A lot of people get confused with what is an enterprise fund, so they try to provide a brief discussion as to what an enterprise fund is, and we list all the individual enterprise funds, and again, the change in their operating budget year over year between 15 and 16. And then there's some real brief information on public schools, with some references to websites that they could go to get a lot more detailed information on schools. There's so much information out there on public school systems on the state's website that we point the readers to those areas if they really want to get into and understand the real minutia associated with school operations, because it's just not enough. This document's not intended to educate the person on the fine details of public education. It's just not large enough to do that.
Absolutely, but I think still informational to see all the schools listed, to see the grades that they serve, the enrollment, and then how that cost per student has gone up over the years and fluctuated a little bit since 2008, and how it's in line or not so much, or how it is in line with the statewide average.
How it compares to the statewide average. I think that helps people get an understanding as to where we are compared to the statewide average.
Absolutely.
And for some that may be meaningful, for others it may not be so meaningful. But we're hoping for feedback on this document from the community. And every year the intention is to have this document updated, add new information, take things out that aren't really interesting to people, and based on that, we'll add some new stuff that people want to know more about, and issue this every single year.
And residents will be able to get a copy of the financial overview report in the next few weeks. It will be available at Town Hall and on the town's website. We'll be sure to tune in to our hour-long news program, Barnstable This Morning, weekdays at 7 a.m. On tomorrow's show, we will have our Arts and Culture segment. We'll chat with HYCC General Manager Joe Izzo about Try Hockey for Free Day. Plus, we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.